And just to add to that, what you're saying, Sam, is that's why we created Father Time, this platform, so that there might be other comments underneath this video that's going to help all those who come to the video.
Yeah, and plus another thing, we're not going to have all the answers to everything, obviously. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we can find the resources that you need in order to get, to where you need to get as far as any type of circumstance or situation, you might be in.
So today on Father Time, I just wanted to talk. We'd received this notice from a grandmother who was saying that her 18-year-old son just had a 5-year-old baby, and the dad wasn't put on the baby or the birth certificate, and he was wondering what he should do. He wants to be added to the birth certificate, and he wants to pay child support. So the question becomes: is what can this man do to establish these rights? Sam? Alex, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, obviously, if he feels he's the father of the child, then obviously the first thing he needs to do is make sure that he does a paternity test. That can be easily done through DNA testing, whether it's done through blood or through a swab, through the mouth or something. But there should be locations out there where they can contact, people as well in order to get that done. And that probably be by far the most important thing to do first. What do you think about Alex?
Well, the first thing that I think about is I wanted to give information about maybe how the situation got to this point, but not get too much into it, and get to the fact of, like, the Office of Attorney General is probably where he wants to go. Right? That's the first thing that he wants to do. He wants to go to the Office of Attorney General. The reason he wants to do that is because if mom is receiving any kind of support from the state, whether it be food stamps, housing, or so forth, then most likely there is a case open on the child. His name might not be on the application, or his name might be on the application as what was called an alleged father. That's meaning he's not on the certificate, but she might have said he's the father. Okay, so when he goes into the Office of Attorney General, then what he does is he needs to have the information, the baby's name, the date of birth, and possibly where the child was born. And then once they identify the baby, then he can say, I'm the alleged father, fill out the paperwork, and that'll start getting the child support and everything rolling. I think that's a great idea, because if he doesn't, and it goes on and on and on, that bill is just gonna, that child support bill is just gonna accumulate, and then once he comes to it, then that'll be on his payment history or his history. So I think the first place to start is the Office of Attorney General. She says he would like to put himself on child support due to they no longer together. What are your thoughts? And are there any other resources for him to guide him through this process? My response to that is, since he's not on the birth certificate and she didn't put him on the birth certificate, I'm going to take it to the next level and just say, you can give the San Antonio Fatherhood Campaign a call, because to me, if he's not on the birth certificate and there's some discrepancy there, however you want to put it, then you want to start working on that relationship with the child. And in order to work on that relationship with the child, you have to work on the relationship with the mother. And then if you want to work on the relationship with the mother, you have to work on, your relationship with yourself, so to speak. And so I think the San Antonio Fatherhood Campaign would help with that part of the process. The Office of Attorney General is going to help with I guess what you would call the legal part. Greg?
So I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's imperative that dad is proactive in this, right? That he acknowledges that he feels like he's had a baby. That I have worked with too many men that are not proactive, and like Alex was talking about before, all of a sudden they can find themselves behind child support 2, 3, 4 years. Judges can go back 4 years, but they can actually go back to the birth or the point that the father was aware of that child, right? So you know, that child could be 16 and the state forces mom to identify him, and they could go back 16 years, right? So with all that being said, I think it's imperative. You know, there's the obligation we have to the community, and then there's the obligation the father has to the child, right? And not to get into this, I mean, I've known some people, they don't want to get other people involved, or, you know, there are circumstances there, but I think it's important that the dad goes down to the Attorney General's office, has that information, child name, date, birth, mom's name and date, or birth to date, and then start that process. Says, I want a DNA test, right? Because I'm at this point, I feel like I'm the father. Now he has the right to ask for that DNA test, and the state will pay for that. The state is very invested in finding out who is dad and ensuring that dad's doing his part financially, emotionally, so on and so forth.
So I'm thinking this grandmother, as you say that, this grandmother might say, well, what if she doesn't want to do that? Do we know?
We live by rules and laws of the country.
Yeah.
I don't know if she has a choice.
Yeah.
Because what the judge is going to do is she's going to make a decision. And when judges make decisions, we no longer have a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
That in
So
itself
if she
is the
doesn't
country
do, if
that
she
we
doesn't
create.
do what the judge says, then she'll be, in essence, kind of breaking the law or something.
Well, she
Well,
can be
well,
held in contempt.
not only that, but I mean, there's no way that she can ask for child support unless you know she can prove that he's the father. So, I mean, unless she's just trying to break all ties with the man, but I mean, that's not right for him, you know.
So I mean, we're in the process that we're potentially looking at a new president, right? And policies change. So we have to understand what policies have been in the past. So if we are asking for food benefits, medical benefits, Medicaid, or any of that kind of stuff, the state says very clearly, right? And even with the president change, the state says very clearly, we want to know who dad is. And if you don't tell us,
identify
then you could lose your benefits, right? You could lose your benefits.
Yes.
Now, if mom was married, that changes us all, right? Because if mom's married and she has a baby out of wedlock, then that her husband is still presumed the legal and biological father.
You mean if she's married over here, but then has a child with somebody over here? Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that dad can't exercise his right. It's just a longer path to identify himself as the biological father and then move into that legal father.
And at the end of this video, I'm going to put in the San Antonio Father Campaign phone number, and I'm also going to put in the number for the Office of Attorney General. It's my understanding we have another question that came through.
So there's another number that you should add too. So the Attorney General's office has an 800 number that actually can connect citizens of the U.S. to a lawyer in Texas, right? So then they can ask what their legal rights are. It's Monday through Friday from 1 to 7. I'll get you that number, but you want to also then that way you can get very clear legal advice in regards to this situation, because you have to be proactive. I mean, you have a responsibility. I don't know what else to say other than, you know, if you're not, it can come back.
Yeah. And plus another thing, you know, we're not going to have all the answers to everything, obviously, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we can find the resources that you need in order to get, you know, to where you need to get as far as any type of circumstance or situation, you know, you might be in, you know. And this is one, you know, this is a tough one. You know, it's a young man who really wants to be part of his child's life, you know, and you definitely got to applaud that. So, yeah.
And just to add to that, what you're saying, Sam, is that's why we created Father Time, this platform, so that there might be other comments underneath this video that's going to help all those who come to the video. Again, Greg, I think we had another question come in.
So we had it looks like a grandmother contacted us and said that my son is in need of services, right? He needs to urgently file for visitation of parental rights. So again, it's the same kind of process. The quickest way from A to Z is always mom, but if he needs to, then he needs to contact the Attorney General's office and say, I believe I'm the father of so-and-so, and I would like to sign myself up for child support. But before that, I want to confirm with the DNA test. And that is his right. So there's nothing wrong. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. we have the rights for a DNA test. Now, if I'm married to her and we have a baby, that's different, right? But, if he presumes he's the father and he wants to check it, he has the right to ask for that paternity test. They're very non-invasive. It's a swab in the mouth. They take him, they might even have the baby's DNA on file already, and then they compare them.
So when I see visitation or paternity rights, what that leads me to, and then of course, if should this person see the video, they can comment back. But anyway, what that leads me to is that the parent or one of the parents is not letting, kind of like what our other video was about, is not letting dad, I'm just going to assume, but could be mom, but dad see the child. And so this grandmother, as you said, that's asking, how do I file for visitation? One thing that I want to point out, in case, and unless it's changed, paying child support does not guarantee visitation. So just
No.
because you're paying child support doesn't mean that, hey, if I'm paying child support, she legally has to let me see the child. It doesn't.
No.
There's been very many cases where the father has come to pick up the child or has wanted to see the child, and the mother just will not let the child outside. The police officers come, and the police officer basically says, like, if you don't have a court order or some kind of legal document that says you get visitation at this time, there's really nothing I can do. I can maybe file a record, or I don't know. That's police work, but
so that's a very good point, Alex. Right, and we need to step back and understand. So I'm not a lawyer and I don't understand the law, but I've talked to plenty of lawyers, right? So when they go through that process of establishing child support, they also, in that legal document, they need to talk about access, which is visitation. And they need to talk about medical support. So it's all together, right? You go for to put myself on child support, knowing that I'm going to have a point in this process. I'm going to get in front of the judge, and the judge is going to say, when we define this, we need to talk about visitation or access. And then that in turn gives you that document that says that you have a legal right, because now the law has determined you as the legal father of that child. And without any of that, it's all gray. It's all hearsay, right? Well, I believe I know that doesn't matter, right? So it's like if I'm going to build a house, I need to start with the foundation.
But let me add to that, and then we're having this discussion. Maybe one of y'all have the answer, or maybe not. The young father, what I found is in this situation, this is where the young father gets deterred. And what I mean by that is because this is the point where I believe they need a lawyer, and lawyers cost money. And if they don't have the money to hire a lawyer, then this is where I think they kind of give up, because they say, hey, you know what? I can't afford a lawyer. I guess this is where I'm at. Do you think that's the way it is as far as at this point? Do they need a lawyer, or do you know if the state appoints them or gives them, which I don't think they do, but what are y'all's thoughts?
So the lawyer, there is going to be a lawyer in this, but they represent the state.
Okay, so he doesn't have a lawyer.
They're not going to represent mom. They're not going to represent dad.
Okay.
They're going to represent the state of Texas. And again, that's very clear from the state, right? So we want dad identified, so maybe he helps out with medical insurance, right? He pays child support. He helps out this child. He's emotionally connected to the child. The state understands that there's benefits with both mom and dad being very involved in their child's life.
Exactly.
Now, I've always said very clearly, getting from point A to B quicker, you hire a lawyer and they can get it done faster. The attorney general moves very slow. They're very busy. They have a lot of cases going on.
Yes.
And I think I even read somewhere in the COVID, that we've seen a huge spikes in pregnant moms and coming births, right? So a lot of people were sitting around the house, and now we got a lot of babies to deal with, right? So with all that being said, right, if he can hire a lawyer, but they're expensive, but he doesn't have to. Now, enforcement of visitation orders, different things that might come up in the future, that's different. But what we're talking about is establishing rights, visitation, and child support. Because like I said, dad's responsible. That judge can go back 4 years. And if you look at an average child support order, maybe it's $3,000 a year. And dad overnight in the next 4 years, he could become $20,000 in debt.
Yeah.
Once the
Yeah,
judge rules.
and in addition to everything, you guys are saying too, just like the first question, it's all going to start with the paternity, because the state wants to identify the father, and period. I mean, and that's where it's going to start. So obviously, you want to make sure, you have the resources, you got the numbers, the doors you need to knock on, the numbers you need to call, the people you need to reach out to in order to get that process going.
I think to even take it a step further where it starts even before that, and I've said it before, this is why it's very important, is it starts with the relationship between the young father and the young mother and trying to establish that relationship. Because if you have a healthy relationship, I don't think visitation is going to be that big of an issue.
Yeah.
But when there's conflict and there's whatever you want to call it, as we say, a wounded spirit between the two, then that's where the challenge comes in. And so if I could say anything to the young dad out there who's trying to get visitation, if you're able to call her and just say, hey, how are you doing? How's your day? How is, whoever the child is, and just kind of do that on a regular basis, I think that's going to be the little, whatever you want to call it, the seed or whatever, that's going to help the start of that relationship. Because if you're not calling at all, then mom's going to see it as like, you're not even making an effort.
And I mean, Alex, it's great advice, right? And there's so many little pieces in this, right? You don't want to be harassing mom. You don't want to be calling her all the time.
No, you don't want to be harassing.
If you're out of that relationship, you kind of have to own that relationship's over, right? So you're not going to ask about the boyfriend. You're not going to ask anything like that, right? But you're right. If we can create a healthy relationship with mom with healthy boundaries, then that's always in the best interest of the child.
The best interest of everyone.
Exactly.
Everyone concerned. It's always better, to take the high road, to be mature, think 2-3 times before you speak and act and be kind to one another. The thing is the thing is this, in our parenting class, I'm always telling the clients, your kids want you to love each other. Believe me, I mean, I'm divorced. So I remember even, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, even after me and my kids' mom was divorced, they would always say, Dad, are you ever going to get back with mom? I'm like, I know that's never going to happen. They're like, oh, okay. 'Cause that's what they want. That's what they desire. They love their mom. They love their dad. So the biggest favor you could do for your children, guys, and please, take this for what I'm going to say, is be civil with one another. Regardless of what y'all did to each other, how you wounded yourself, broke each other, whatever, for the sake of your children, just be kind, when you're around each other, and don't talk bad about each other, because that wounds them even more. I mean, and I'm just talking from personal experience. Just be kind, and everything else will work itself out in the end.
Perfect. All right. Anything else, guys?
That was good.
That's it for me. And thank you. And
Till
thank
the
you for the
next time.
questions, people, for giving us that. We truly appreciate that. Anybody else out there who would have any other questions that you would like us to discuss, so we can give you some more information at the end of this video, like Alex was saying, we'll provide you with some information and phone numbers in order to contact, in order to proceed from here as far as moving in that direction.